Normally, you would expect Intel to follow the same naming scheme for newer generations because that has been the case since 2010 when Intel launched its very first generation of Core i processors. While the prefix Intel Core i denotes the brand and brand modifier, the model number after that denotes the generation that includes the first 2 digits as generation indicator and the last 3 are SKU numeric digits. For the lower end spectrum, Intel has the Pentium and Celeron CPUs that follow a different naming scheme, but they are still easy to recognize due to following the same pattern over the years. This easily helps identifying the generation and the tier of any processor easily. Like if I were to ask you about a CPU like Core i5-12600K, you would easily guess that it is a mid-range CPU from the 12th generation. This is because the first 2 digits of the model number indicate the generation and the brand modifier denotes the CPU tier. This made identifying any CPU so easy that even if I were to give you just the model number like 10600K, you would easily guess that it is an overclockable i5 from the 10th generation. Fortunately, Intel is following the same trend with the Raptor Lake refresh family where the naming scheme will be as usual. But this is the last time we are going to see this naming convention as Intel has totally changed how the next generation CPUs will sound like. If you remember, in the past few weeks we had a few leaks where the next gen CPUs, namely Meteor Lake chips, will have a totally different naming scheme like Intel Core Ultra 7 1002H. Well, it might seem here that Intel has only changed the prefix I to Ultra and the model number, but this does not end here. Technically, the Meteor Lake chips are the 15th gen CPUs, and giving it a model number that starts from 10 will only lead to confusion for the generations that will follow it. For example, when Arrow Lake will be launched, it will most likely feature model numbers such as 1102H, 1103H and so on. But as I said before, this is not the only thing you have to take care of. Intel has officially announced another naming scheme for different tiers of processors. As reported by video cards, Meteor Lake and the future generations will be divided into 2 categories. One is the mainstream and the other one is premium. Under both categories, we have processors denoting the CPU subfamily like 3, 5, 7 and 9. But both categories overlap each other with subfamily 5 and 7. However, the mainstream category will feature the brand name as Intel Core processor, while the premium category will feature the brand name as Intel Core Ultra processor. So even though both categories will feature subfamily 5 and 7 CPUs, their identity is linked with how they are branded. So not only Intel has a confusing naming convention with respect to understanding the processor generation, but it also has confusing CPU categories. Up until now, we don't know what differences are there between the mainstream and premium categories, but regardless of that, this naming convention looks messed up. Now, before moving on, consider subscribing if you want to stay updated with all the latest hardware news and leaks going around the world. It can be quite time consuming to grasp everything at once, but on this channel you will get the most interesting stories delivered in a few minutes. Next, we have a new report coming from a Reddit user that is the first person to report a burnt 12-pin connector on the PSU itself. Up until now, we had reports that were only about burned power connectors on the cable and the graphics cards. But this one here is the first one on a PSU, specifically a 600 watts model from Be Quiet that melted horribly. The melting was even worse on the cable connector where an entire bottom row almost disappeared. As reported by Tom's Hardware, Be Quiet told the publication that this is a unique case and we have already reached out to the customer to learn more and that they have initiated an investigation. Apparently, this issue has not been eradicated completely and there have been several discussions on whether this is the fault within connector's design or an actual human error. And lastly, we have the first glimpse of AMD's RX 7800 XT made by ASRock. The company recently filed 2 new AMD GPUs on EEC, and it can be clearly seen that both the GPUs are the 7800 XT, where one is the PG16GO and the other one is PGW16GO. Here PG refers to Phantom Gaming and seemingly both fall under the Phantom Gaming sub-brand. It is not yet clear when are these GPUs launching worldwide, but as AMD promised to deliver mainstream GPUs in this quarter, we are likely to see the 7800 XT hitting the market in the next month. As for the pricing, it is rumored that this card is going to launch somewhere around $600 to compete directly with the RTX 4070, but we don't know exactly how this card will perform. However, we do have a rough idea about its possible performance level, which you can find right here in this video. This video shows how the RX 7800 XT might fail AMD badly and what it can possibly do to save its mid-range GPUs. Lastly, let me know your thoughts about Intel's new naming scheme in the comments below, and subscribe if you want to stay updated with the latest hardware stories like these. Also, make sure to turn on the notifications to never miss the latest uploads to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.